we need to talk about the Lorax. Yes, the Lorax. Because is it really just a movie about a grumpy little goblin with a mustache who's trying to save the trees? Maybe. But I think we can go deeper. Because if the Lorax was really just a story about environmental destruction and deforestation, why was the Onceler's mother the real villain of this movie? So let's dive into this movie with an essence. So you see the main character, who's like kind of not the main character because this movie's barely about him. His name's Ted. Ted needs to impress a girl, and not just any girl. It seems like the only girl in the town that wants a tree for her birthday. But that's a problem because the town he's living in is made of plastic and they pay for air. So where is there a tree to be found? Ted's a G because he's like, I'm gonna get this girl a tree, okay? I don't care how. So he talks to his grandma who lived back when there were trees, and she gives him the inside scoop. She basically tells him he has to collect all these random objects and travel to the middle of nowhere to find a man named the Onceler, and then ask him for a tree. And so Ted, because he's like, this girl is the one, he even imagines himself at her birthday party presenting her with the tree. Goes all the way out there to find the Onceler. But once he gets there, the Onceler is like, you're not getting this tree that easy. Listen up. I gotta tell you a story before I'm even gonna think about giving you a tree, okay? And this story takes like 3 days to tell. I'm sure Ted was exhausted. At first I was like, just give the man a tree. But once he starts telling this story, my ears perked up. And that's when the real message of this movie hit me. It was all about the mother wound. So in the Onceler's story, he talks about how he wanted to follow his dreams and make something of himself. He just knew his need was going to be a hot topic. But before he even steps a single foot on his journey, his mother was already deep in her villain bag. Like, imagine you're about to go off to college and someone says this.
But just remember, Oncey, if somehow your invention ends up a failure instead of a success, oh, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Oh my God, you have to fight them. There's no other way. And then she laughs and makes everyone else laugh too. Criminal. I'm sorry. Because no wonder this was his villain origin story. She wasn't giving him support or motivation. That was a warning. And throughout the movie, that warning lingers. And I remember watching it and I was like, oh my God, why would she say that? And then as the movie went on, I was like, oh, they're trying to tell us something. And after my Tangled videos and diving deep into mother wound research, I was convinced it had to be something similar. Because why else in a movie about a man using up all the trees would they make his mother such a prominent character and a villain at that? So after the Onceler set off to prove himself, I felt like I was simultaneously watching him set off to expose one of the biggest narratives in the mother wound. The narrative that tells you that your worthiness of being loved and accepted is found in success and approval. The one that causes you to lead your life thinking, if I don't achieve, I don't belong. And that's kind of how chasing success comes less about chasing your dreams and becomes more about survival. And the messed up part that I couldn't unsee, that Bethany Webster also mentions on her site, is that it's not just personal, it's planetary. Like the way we treat the earth is a 1-to-1 mirror of this cycle. Because just like the Onceler, as we'll talk about in a minute, we are not just taking from the earth to live and enjoy anymore, really. There's a lot of taking to prove something.
Yeah, burn. But you'll see, okay? I'm going to prove you all wrong. Come on, Melvin.
After that pep talk from his mother, the Onceler sets out to prove them all wrong. Because he's got to find more material for his need. The world is waiting on him. And that's when he finds a forest, untouched and in all its glory. And he says, yeah, I'm going to take that. But the animals start side-eyeing him. And as they should, because you're not going to come in my house and start tearing it apart. No thanks. So what does he do? He gives them marshmallows. A sweet treat, a distraction, but not actual nourishment. But it is something so they kind of ease up. And then he decides he's just going to cut down just one tree. And then boom, the Lorax shows up materializing himself out of a tree stump, playing no games. He shows up like, hey, did you just chop down this tree? You didn't see me standing here?
You're telling me you just didn't see me magically appear out of that stump with all the lightning and thunder and stuff?
So they beef it out for a little bit, but eventually they try and make it work. And here's the part that I think gets overlooked. Okay, because the Onceler promises he won't chop down any more trees and he's just going to harvest the tufts. And the Lorax agrees to let him coexist, which to them means all the forest animals shacked up in his home. But there's harmony. He takes, but he also gives until the Thneed starts selling. And once the Thneed starts selling, guess who shows up? His mama, saying, oh, I just said that for motivation. I didn't mean it. But once she gets involved, all of a sudden, they're not producing fast enough. And suddenly for the Onceler, that just one tree promise starts looking real inconvenient. This was the scene that did it for me, honestly. Her character like fully embodied the mother wound, like whispering in his ear. It's like before she shows up, he's like, I can do this in a way that feels good. I can have balance. But then that survival mode kicks in. And then suddenly it's all about biggering. He's afraid he's not moving fast enough. And then all of a sudden he's looking for approval through this toxic perspective his mother has. He's chasing security, aka that love from his mother, to prove his worth. And just that easily, he breaks his promise. And just like the Onceler, we are potentially projecting this mother wound onto the earth. Because once a collective of humans starts biggering just to feel safe, we end up taking more than we need. And that can cause a lot of collective guilt. So we see things implemented that try to offset the damage that look a little bit sus, like greenwashing or practicing fake environmentalism, all to project an image, marshmallows. Because it's not actually restoring the balance and the agreement with the earth. It's about offsetting the guilt. Because to me, real balance indicates nurturing a relationship and not really just slapping a band-aid on it. And I think the movie's trying to tell us that too. Because just like the Lorax and the forest's wildlife, Earth wants to work with us. There's a better way for us to coexist. But if the Onceler's promise crumbles under the pressure of chasing approval, what does that mean for the rest of us? Okay, so boom. One little reminder that he isn't cutting it and the agreement is out the window. And you gotta admit, it takes skill to be this slick. Do it for your mama.
But
No buts, Oncey. You're running a business now. You have to do what's best for the company and your mama.
And that is where the Onceler's inner villain rears its head. One little pinch of the mother wound and he can't even look the Lorax in the eye.
Excuse me, sir. I need to talk with your boss.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So he ignores him and he starts chopping. He keeps biggering and biggering, almost daring fate to prove him wrong, singing in a song about how bad could he possibly be. Well, he's about to find out because he chops until the last tree falls. And just like that, the factory grinds to a halt. There's no more Thneeds. And then they make sure to show us this part, right? The world's slickest supervillain pulls up.
Son, you have let me down. Brett, you are now my favorite child.
She was so slick, y'all. And I know he was hurting. But why show us that? Why show us that he destroyed an entire ecosystem and still couldn't earn approval from his mother? And the worst part is he knew it was coming. He saw the warnings. He heard the Lorax. He felt that guilt. But by the time he felt like he should stop, it was too late. And if you've been paying attention, a similar drama is unfolding on our global scale. Our insatiable drive for more oil and production mirrors directly the Onceler's relentless biggering. We're taking so much it's unsustainable and the earth is flashing us hazard signs.
Outside of lightning, everything else is usually human caused.
And destruction stretching as far as the eye can see.
It's about 70 degrees out and it's still warming up.
Giving us warnings to slow down before we hit the point of no return. But plot twist, the story's not over yet. Because even though all the forest animals left and all the trees are gone and the Lorax takes his ass home, literally, like he lifts himself up by his tail and floats into the clouds, he leaves behind one word: unless. Because unless
someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
We have to care enough to break the cycle. But how do we do that? I used to say that healing the world starts with healing the individual. Because the more people we can get to choose to move differently, the more likely that this damage isn't permanent. And we can turn things around. See, the Onceler, once everything's dead and gone, he's got one thing left. After telling Ted this long story, he doesn't give him the tree that he asked for. He gives him a single seed. And the only stipulation was that he had to plant it in the middle of town for everyone else to see. The Onceler could have planted that seed himself, grown back the trees, and lived a different life, right? But the thing about healing, though, it's not always about fixing what's been broken. Sometimes it's about starting something new. That seed isn't just about the trees, and healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about what you nurture, what you pass on. But before we break a cycle like this, we kind of have to know why it's happening. And that's why the Onceler asked Ted to take the seed and grow something different. And awareness. So it's up to us to decide what we want our seeds to be. If you have ideas, leave them in the comments, because community is such a big, beautiful thing when it comes to topics like this. I guess my favorite sustainability find at the moment is the Too Good To Go app, and it's helping to reduce food waste by offering food that restaurants and grocery stores would have at the end of the day, selling them for super cheap. But there's also another conversation I'm having about this movie and self-worth over on Patreon. There's a 7-day free trial, and a big thank you to my patrons. I love y'all. And just remember, a single seed can start a revolution. So think about what you want to plant. All right, I'm sending love and healing your way. Bye.